What up? Welcome to Homegrown Hustle, where local brilliance takes the center stage. I'm your host, Matt Eichmann. Together, we're about to embark on an inspiring journey. Our community thrives on the wisdom of insightful leaders that are right here in our backyard. And we're bringing their expertise to your ears. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or simply seeking inspiration, this podcast is your guide. Join us every week in celebrating innovation, guidance, and the power to inspire greatness. Let's explore the stories that shape our local business landscape, and together, let's ignite the spark of excellence. Welcome to the Homegrown Hustle podcast. I'm Matt Eichmann here with Gina Horkey, serial entrepreneur, crazy diverse background. Very excited to be talking with you today. We spoke a little bit. I've heard a lot about you within the Forest Lake community. How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, let's just dive right into it. So right now, you are currently running your most recent business, undermuscle.com, and there's a few components to that we'll get into. But before we talk about your current business, let's like back it all the way up to when you first got into business. We were just talking off air a little bit, and you've owned and exited 3 different businesses, graduated from college when you were 19, pretty much just been getting after it since you were 16, trying to just continually grow is the trend I'm seeing. Can you tell us a little bit of like that first step that you had into business or business ownership?
Yeah, I mean, if we go all the way back, I was 11 when I started babysitting. Yeah. So hustling from that age because as I mentioned, like we grew up poor and type of poor where we actually had, the food stamps and we had ration cheese and powdered milk. Actually, one of my very big claims to fame is that I sent Mark Cuban an email after reading his book. And I don't know what the title is, but it was like $5 on Audible and I would highly recommend it. And he shared his story growing up and having powdered milk. And so that was in my subject line. And he actually replied to me, which I thought was fun because he's kind of a big deal. Yeah. And he read my email and we have this connection point from our past.
And it happens to be
powdered milk.
Powdered milk.
Powdered milk. Right. The most gross thing you can ever imagine. My mom would take a half gallon of skim milk because, of course, you remove the fat from everything in the 90s, right? And would take half of what was left and then add water and the powdered milk and try and make it taste better that way. But we always knew.
Gotcha. So that being poor, do you think that kind of lit a fire under you a little bit and motivated you to not have that for yourself when you grew up? Or like, was that, because I know for myself, like I grew up in a similar setting and it really drove me to not have those things for myself. My parents set us up for a lot of success that way.
Yeah.
Seems like your family put a lot into you as well you don't really graduate college at 19 and not have somebody supporting you, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think in a lot of ways it's because I didn't have a plan and advice that I had to just figure it out on my own. So I soaked up resources. I heard things. I would say it's, God's speaking to me and divine, guidance from him because I didn't know that PSEO was a thing, that post-secondary enrollment options. It's really common these days and people actually stay at their high school and take classes and, accomplish some of their education.
And you're doing
that
it
way.
Before it was cool though.
I mean, so there's 3 of us in my family. My brother is the oldest and then 2 years behind him is my sister and 2 years behind her is me. And so every 2 years, my mom had a baby and I was 5 when they got divorced and she had moved us into an apartment, which was Section 8 housing in Lindstrom. And, we went to Chisago and Taylor's Falls and then graduated from there. My sister actually was thinking about going post-secondary and she's a very social butterfly. She was very popular in high school. Me, I was like, in the groups, I played a little bit of athletics. I did okay academically. And so I could socialize with everybody, but I definitely wasn't popular. My favorite story from being in middle school with her, by the way, is she was in 8th grade. I was in 6th grade. Our middle school was 6th, 7th, and 8th. And we each had a floor in the school. And jerseys were a big thing, like NBA jerseys. And she had one.
Were they backwards too or not yet?
I don't think we wore them backwards, but she had Chicago Bulls. And I stole her jersey in the morning, wearing it to school somehow not realizing that she would see me throughout the day or one of her friends were.
A little bit of an oversight.
Yeah, yep. And so I would just remember all of a sudden somebody grabbing me and slamming me up against the locker. Here it's my own sister for stealing her jersey. I digress. She was very social, so it didn't really suit her that she would leave high school and that environment and go to college, but it made sense for me. And so that's what I did. And I got the state of Minnesota to pay my tuition for those couple of years and then went on.
So at 19 then, you were talking about studying psychology.
Yeah.
And then you also mentioned some self-limiting beliefs, which I know we all have kind of those self-fulfilling prophecies at times. So you chose not to go
to grad school and become a therapist. Yep. Because I had the thought in my mind that if I was 21 with my master's degree, starting my career in that field, that nobody would take me seriously. I didn't really stop to think like everybody gets started at whatever age. And would it matter if I was 21, 23, 25? Probably not. You're still young and inexperienced, right? Like I know those things now.
Sorry, Anthony from ADT is here to be on the podcast.
Right.
Do you even know who this is?
Didn't confirm.
Okay. I'm going to quick deal with that. I'll put you on the line shot.
Are we paused right now?
Still recording.
Let's just go back into it then. Chose not to go in that direction.
Right.
So we need to resume now. So chose not to go into that direction.
Yeah.
And then what was the thought process then?
Well, so the beautiful thing is I feel like I've come full circle now as a life coach and personal trainer. Like if I look back into all of the career positions or businesses that I've had, I've always showed up as a coach. And I've always showed up as somebody that helps people to assess the situation, create a plan, implement, keep them accountable, and make an impact, which is fun. So while I was in college, I actually started working for Jenny Craig. And I started as a weight loss consultant. And then I moved into sales. And then when I graduated, I took over their Coon Rapids location. And somebody that was managing it before me had kind of run it into the ground. So they took a chance on this 19, 20-year-old girl. And within that next year, I turned everything around. I won Center Director of the Month award, I think 11 out of 12 months.
Is that a franchise model? Is that how that works? Or
no,
was it corporate?
It was corporate.
Okay.
And then they had the different locations. I mean, it's totally changed now. I haven't really kept up with them, although I heard they were in the news recently, like for sale or something like that. But it was a cool experience because I got to work with people when it came to their health goals. And they did do a good job of teaching you about lifestyle habits and how to break them and form new ones and things like that. Now, prepackaged food, meal prepping, I mean, all of it is kind of the same. If you know what you're eating and it's convenient and works for you, great. Most people aren't going to buy that for the rest of their lives. So you still have to figure out how to make food for yourself. That's the main downfall is I think it could get expensive for some people.
Gotcha.
And then it didn't really have a lot to do with some of the other things that I believe heavily in protein forward diet and strength training in particular.
So that you were at Jenny Craig
for kind of a short period of time then, while in college and then the year afterwards. And then I kind of hit this glass ceiling. So I had applied to be the regional director, which would oversee several different territories in the Midwest. I did not get that job. And so from there, it would be to move cross country or their home offices were in California or just keep doing the same thing, which I had kind of like seen all the upside potential that I could make off of bonuses and commissions. So I knew enough at that time to be like, I'm not going to keep doing this. I actually did dip my toe in real estate.
Okay.
Did not continue that. I sold my sister a house. So that was my claim to fame there.
All right.
But I learned a lot, you know, going through even just the certification process or licensure process. I remember things from that class. I remember sitting whatever city it was in the Northwest Metro and learning about things like how to properly deduct your home office, right? What things could enter that equation and what could not. So you technically should not have somebody sleep in your office as a guest of you personally and still write it off or whatever the case may be. So I learned some of the financial lingo, and then I applied for a financial advisor role with Ameriprise Financial. They had just cut ties or broken away from American Express, which is how they were known before that. And I jumped into a whole new career without a background, except for the fact that I did well with people. and I like coaching and talking about like financial goals.
And you
stuff.
did that for
Almost 10 years.
all right.
So I survived the Great Recession, which was fun times to be a new advisor and try to get people to invest money with you. And then relocated up here. So I was in their employee branch, and then there's a franchise branch up here.
Tell me a little bit about that, like going through that 2008-ish, that recession, and still be like advising people financially. Like what?
Yeah.
Was that the thing that triggered you to be like, all right, maybe I got to do something else? Or I'm just trying to think of like what business was like.
Yeah. So we
period.
technically had a draw or a salary when I was on the employee side. And I can't remember how much it was, if it was like $25 an hour or something like that.
Okay.
So you had to make that at least in commissions in order to like break even. And if you didn't make that, then you had to make up for it in future pay cycles. So you couldn't really live off of just breaking even. And then they had other both incentives as well as measuring sticks. So if you continued to underperform, then you would be asked to leave basically or fired. I did qualify for a first year top achiever and then a couple of other awards. So I'm definitely achiever type personality. If you look at my Enneagram or any of the other things, give me a carrot, I'll find a way to get it, kind of a thing. So being part of the recession, I think was scary because, you know, I had never gone through anything like that. I never had money, you know, or invested or, you know, like there wasn't a college fund for me or anything like that. So I went into a field that I didn't really know anything about in the first place, but had the growth mindset that I could learn and figure it out. And then, you know, luckily I think had some good mentors and education, and we looked at historical performance and stuff like that, but it definitely wasn't easy. And that's when I started to look at what are my options in 2008, 2009, as things were kind of crashing. And then I found a short-term position where I took over for somebody that was going off on a maternity leave in a franchise office of the same company. And that was for a summer. And that was mainly in a support role. So I was writing financial plans. I was doing the actual like tickets as far as making trades and all sorts of compliance stuff. And then I started with the practice here, and I worked with them for, I think it was 6 years. And it was a little family run business at the time. And we were starting to think about starting a family, Wade and I. I met him when I was 18 too. So we've been married forever. And
that's awesome. That's like my wife and I. We started dating when I was 15.
Okay.
And I'm only 33, so it's not that long yet, but I've been with her longer than I haven't been with her. And I think that's a cool stat. Anyway.
It's weird, right? When you think about how many years you've had your license and how many years
and it like
you've been.
Gets to the point where like once you've known somebody for so long, like it's not like there's these surprises that happen in those first couple of years. Like I see my friends, you know, this is kind of off topic. We can get back onto the
health,
hustle,
wealth, and relationships, baby.
So
I met him at the Upper Deck, which is now Lone Oak.
So you're like from around here.
I am, and I thought I would go to New York or Chicago or Minneapolis.
So what is it that you love about like the Forest Lake, Chisago Lakes, Wyoming area? Like why?
I mean,
why
everybody, I think for the most part, this is a blanket statement, kind of wants to escape their small town and go on to bigger, better things. Not everybody, but a subset of people. And I would have put myself in that category. But I met Wade, and he already owned a house that we still live in today.
There you go.
Yeah.
Shout out to Wade.
Best stay-at-home dad ever, by the way.
Yeah, jealous. So then you look to exit, right?
So I got kind of bored. I didn't care for the compliance part of the business. Not that I was like opposed to making sure that people were adequately informed and I was transparent and all those things. It just felt like kind of a handcuff to being able to like operate a business and call your own shots. Plus, there wasn't the level of availability to do things like Zoom calls then. It was very much you saw your people in person. You were maybe licensed in a couple of states. But it's progressed since then. I don't love investing. It doesn't get me fired up to research stocks. Tax planning is interesting to me, especially as a business owner.
Mhm.
But so I wanted to move on. I read John Acuff's Start book, and I read The 4-Hour Work Week from Tim Ferriss, both in 2014, the very beginning of the year. And I had just felt like unsettled, like I was meant for more. I needed to make a change. But I had some conditioning that I had to work through that was like, no, you committed to this thing. You got to do this forever. Because
where did that come from?
that's a good question. I think by asking people to hire me and then trust me with their money, and kind of like the conversations that we were having about their retirement 10, 20, 30 years in the future, and us in this kind of partnership.
You felt like you were maybe letting those people down?
Oh, for sure.
That's
also
tough.
I saw a success path there.
Yeah. I mean, they build it that way for financial planning, right? So that somebody comes in and then they stay there for a while, and they build this book of business, and long term,
you're doing
they have that
the
carrot
hustle,
for
the hard work up front, and so that you can kind of take the foot off the gas later on and reap the rewards, right?
So then we go into your first exit, right? You sell that book of business.
Yeah, but at first I had to start the other one at the same time. So I was nursing a baby.
About that.
Yeah, getting up at 4:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, so that I could like figure out how to land clients and offer this service. I wasn't a professional writer. I hadn't written books at that time.
How did you come up with that as the next thing?
I just stumbled across the right resource at the right time.
Okay.
So then I got plugged in, started landing clients. And so I was doing these things together because I had to make sure that I could validate that this would be a thing, because I supported my family. And through a self-employed standpoint, I didn't have benefits or anything like that.
So you got to cover your bases there and work extra hard, really.
So my goal was to get up to $5,000 a month as quickly as I could in order to cover our baseline expenses so that we wouldn't be on food stamps ourselves.
And how fast did that happen?
I was at 4 by September, and I started in May. So I looked into the whole thing.
Awesome.
I opened up the Google search on April 15th of 2014. It was tax day.
Wow. So how did you accelerate it like that in such a short period of time? Like, what were because you're like freelance writing. How are you sourcing your customer at that point? Is it face-to-face? Is it all digital?
No, none of it face-to-face.
You went completely, so you went from being everything face-to-face, tons of red tape, to now like all these freedoms and like virtual and.
Yeah. I mean, I used a Facebook group to get started. I was called, or 30 Days of Hustle was the name of it. It was through that John Acuff, who I love. Any of his books are phenomenal, by the way. He's a very funny guy too. So I used that kind of leverage. I'm sure I like posted myself. I only got on Facebook in like 2009. I was a late bloomer to all this social stuff. Plus I don't really care for it. Anyways, it's not my thing. I don't look through feeds. I barely post stuff. I have used it more for business in the past. But it's just not my jam. People are my jam. So how did I find clients? I like connected with the right people, and I did some subcontract work. So I didn't have a byline. I also did get samples by just writing them myself on topics I thought were interesting and posting them on a website. I figured out how to launch and put together a website. That's what horkyhandbook.com was.
So literally just learning.
Just doing shit.
I love it.
And then my mentor at the time, who I did some subcontract writing for, I was writing 150 word descriptions of themes that you would put on a WordPress website.
Okay.
I barely knew what a theme was. Like I barely understood this WordPress thing. In some aspects, I barely understand it now. But
here you are writing copy,
writing blog post articles before like all of this AI jazz and content marketing was very much a newer thing at the time. So he asked me when I was going to launch my first product. And I was like, what are you even talking about? Like an online course or an ebook? I was like, oh, okay, that's a thing. So then I started to figure that out. And in the month of November of that first year in 2014, I wrote one lesson a day. I'm teaching people how to take the path that I just took, 30 days or less to freelance writing success. And I sold it in December for $25 a seat. And it just went out one email a day. And then I got kind of fancy in January, and people could click a button and get the next lesson right away if they didn't want to wait 24 hours.
Really?
Yeah. So I was an early adopter to online courses. And then in February of 2015, one of the next things that I did right, thanks to a marketing person that I had hired, is I introduced an affiliate program.
Tell me about that.
So affiliate marketing was newer at the time too. Not like brand new, but not like it is today.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like
as far as how people make money
now.
Yeah. So did like a 40% commission on any course sales. And I had been networking with other bloggers through some other programs because I'm huge. And I've invested so much more into myself post college. As far as like dollars and time and variety of subjects
I
that
think
I
that's
did
so
in college.
important though. I mean, if you're not doing that, how do you can't.
But in coaches, like hundreds of thousands, probably.
That's
at least 100,000.
Is it worth it?
Oh, for sure.
Sweet.
Yeah.
We'll circle back to that towards the back end. So you started selling this first product, right? Plus doing the freelance writing on the side.
So I sell a client. So the September of 2014, I took on my first virtual assistant client. Virtual assistant is just this umbrella that says, hey, I can perform whatever online services for you that you need, whether it's bookkeeping, project management, it could be podcast production, customer service was my jam. And so this online entrepreneur named Brennan Dunn hired me to manage his email because I had taken his course. I had asked him a question. It took him forever to get back to me. And when he did, I was like, hey, I noticed it took you a long time to get back to me. Maybe you should think about right. And I said it in a very I like to think, and I've gotten this feedback that I can say things in a very truthful, diplomatic manner. So I'm blunt but kind at the same time and very concise.
Like kind candor.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyways, he was my first virtual assistant client. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back in a good way, as far as me then kind of putting in my notice at work, asking them if they would buy my practice, which they did. And so that deal was $50,000. That was my first exit at the end of 2014.
That's big though. Now
it was huge then.
So
that was my runway.
So did you take that and use it in your business then, or did you segment it?
I think we put it in the bank, and obviously had some taxes on it.
Anything you would have done differently with that first exit in hindsight?
No.
Okay. So
I feel blessed, looking back, because they could have said no.
Really?
Yeah.
Fascinating. Okay. So we'll stay away from the contract wording there, but so you have your first VA customer.
Yep.
That gets you to leave working for somebody else.
Yep.
Right. And then you blew that up, right? You had a whole bunch of tell us about fullybookva.com.
Yeah. So I always was paying attention to the needs of the marketplace, right? I was spotting opportunities everywhere. So my first course was on freelance writing. I started getting into virtual assistant work, which I consider writing to be underneath, but writers don't want to identify themselves as VAs, or at least they didn't. And virtual assistant, or VA, the term, by the way, here in the United States can get confused with Veterans Administration.
Absolutely.
And then virtual assistant in the past meant automated voice, on Google Maps or whatever, right? So it's interesting to see
how it's evolved over time. Yeah. Siri used to be a virtual assistant.
Right. Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep. So anyways, that year I launched the affiliate programs, continued to sell courses. I think I then maybe repackaged it at some point into more of a courseware, and could add videos and PDFs and things like that. And then I was like, okay, I'm onto something with this virtual assistant thing. Nobody else is really doing it that I can see. I should create a course around that. So I did the exact same thing that I did with the first one, 30 days or less to virtual assistant success. Wrote 30 standalone lessons. So I must not have put it in a courseware yet, the old one. And I delivered it via email. And my current customer base, a lot of them purchased. Plus I had this new offering. Yeah.
So
I remember mapping out the outline in the parking lot of the Como Zoo.
That's hilarious.
We went there as a family.
So you went there as a family, but yet you're working on this
Constantly.
I totally know that feeling. So does my wife.
I'm
So-
better about it now.
Yeah, but you have like sometimes you have to realize those type of things to like be conscious with it,
Mhm.
right? So you're doing these things that are like leading edge, right? Nobody else is really doing
I mean, there
them.
were
Was
people before me, so I'm
you
not
weren't the first one, but you're an early adopter.
And I mean, there were probably like subconscious cues that I picked up from my environment or what I was exposing myself to, but I
do you mean?
didn't see somebody and then go copy what they did.
Gotcha.
And so in that way, it was
So
somewhat
you're,
original.
You're like taking the information in and then like seeing opportunity and then executing on it.
Right.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So was there ever like fear going into these, like
no,
doing
I
those
was
things?
so self-confident the entire time. Of course.
But we have to be, right?
Yeah.
If you're going to be in business, like you have to have that confidence to.
I that was sarcastic. Did you pick that up?
No, I didn't. Not at all.
I have more confidence now than I've ever had in my life. and
I
not
like
from
your
a
dry humor, though. I'm going to
superficial
roll
way.
with that.
I was definitely fearful. I had constant, probably chatter. I'm going to be sober 5 years here on May 5th.
Congratulations.
So
That's awesome.
I probably blocked out some of the fear and imposter syndrome with alcohol.
Okay.
To tell you the truth, and then just kind of shut it down. So instead of like acknowledging and maybe processing through negative emotion, which is a lot of the work that I talk about here as a life coach now, I just blocked it and just like, didn't allow it and kept moving forward anyways, which worked for a while, but then caused other problems long term.
Okay. So you weren't confident.
No.
But
I mean, I must have
you
been
still,
kind of, right?
Like one would think, but yet you still like kept doing it.
Yeah. It must be wired in a way.
Was there something that like excited you about the fact that nobody else was doing it?
Sure.
Because I know, like, I'm kind of that way myself. Where when I see like nobody else is doing this, everyone else is doing that, I want to do this other thing because nobody else is doing it. Like sometimes it's almost exclusively for that reason, which isn't the right reason, but.
I think that's what we have as in common as entrepreneurs. I was just listening to a podcast interview about this recently. I don't know if you've ever come across the Mind Pump show. You have?
Yeah.
Oh, I love them. They're great. More education that I've invested in. I went through their personal training thing recently. So they were having this exact conversation and how each of them in high school would go against the grain. Like they weren't at all part of the group think. And if there was group think and they were even tempted by it, they're like, F no, I'm going over here.
Yeah,
on purpose.
It's like a philosophy term for it. I'm drawing a blank right now. Let's move on. It'll come back to me. So that going against the grain.
So you were talking about like being excited about doing something that was different and what kind of drive and whether or not there was fear involved.
So there's fear involved every day when it comes to business, as far as I'm concerned. But so we all have to like take action and like keep moving forward. But you did that and had an extreme amount of success again and worked towards an exit. So that I
think I hit the right place at the right time.
I mean, that's very humble, but like you still like made it happen, right?
I did, but like
opportunity.
Action leads to other action. That I heard somebody say like POUR as far as an acronym is something to do with like ignoring opportunities. I wish I remember what it POO. Maybe we can figure that out too. But I do think that for whatever reason, right time, right place, plus that action factor. Another of my favorites is Derek Sivers. If you've ever come across him, anything you want.
Haven't, no.
He was the founder of CD Baby.
Okay.
And he sold 2000-ish for $20 million. Kind of a big deal.
That's a solid exit.
And then put it into a CRUT, a charitable remainder unit trust, and then like lives off of, I think, the interest overseas. But he's very succinct writer that has brilliance as far as like philosophy and stuff like that. But he helped indie musicians to be able to sell online. That was kind of his claim to fame and the service that he brought because he wanted it for himself. So where was I going with that one? Oh, he has, so it's SIV, I think it's period ERS and then / multiply. So he has this cool calculator that basically says, here's how much your ideas are worth, like a shitty idea, a good idea, an amazing idea. There's at least 5 different categories. And then the multiplier is your implementation. So you can have the best idea in the world and it'll be worth $1,000, but no implementation means that it's times 1. And so it's still just worth $1,000.
Comes down to doing shit, like you said earlier, just like making it happen. And even to your point where you went into real estate, like the thing you brought up were some of the things that you learned that you did take away despite the failure.
Yeah, because you look at that and you're like, okay, well, I didn't sell 100 houses. I didn't continue on that career. So definitely that was a failure. Or I failed forward, which I am very much embracing these days. And it just led me to the next step quicker.
So has failing forward not been, was it something that you didn't embrace previously?
I didn't understand that as a concept at all. It was either
so did you take loss
or you failed.
Did you take loss hard then?
Yeah. And I think that was part of the commitment that I made to my clients in the financial services industry. And then by me saying I wanted something different was me failing. Interesting. Because I didn't live up to my potential.
But like this construct that you're in, but like inside you didn't enjoy it.
No, I didn't. I described it in other interviews as throwing up a little bit in my mouth when I would think about the next 30 years of my life. And it wasn't the people. The people were amazing. Both the people that I worked with and my clients, awesome. If
and
I
then
could take
all
that,
the rules.
replicate it. Yeah.
So I just think that's really interesting that like how quickly you learn and implement. Like somebody brought an idea to you to start this product and you did it. And it sounds like a little bit longer than 30 days. Like you didn't like take a year to put this together, did you? Like went and did it.
Right. And that the most recent example of that is turning my home office into a private training studio. So I had the idea, sat on it for a little bit, did a little research on pricing, and within 30 days it's up and running.
So you're a quick start too.
Yeah.
But it's not like you don't got like a bunch of projects going on that aren't
not at the moment
moving forward, but but I think there's something to that, like having
kind of focus.
Well, it makes you focus when you have more to juggle. I mean, yeah, you might drop something, but if I get 9 things done when I'm juggling 10 and you're juggling 2 and you get both of those done, well, cool, I got 9. But that one thing could be important, and that's like the fear that I always like circle around as I'm putting 11 pounds of stuff in my 10-pound bag. Like, what's the pound that's going to miss? So that's something that like I juggle with overcommitting.
Yeah.
And then like the thing that made me really like figure that out is like, I absolutely hate letting people down.
Okay.
And disappointing them. So like it's just had to become more like big picture holistic for me. And I'm not sure if you went through similar process as you're juggling all these things, but for me it's all about the people. And if you're letting them down, like you were kind of feeling when you were leaving, it just made me like insecure, because I like to make sure I do what I say I'm going to do. And when I say I'm going to do something and then I don't, I feel like first of all, I shouldn't have said that,
right?
Or I should have just done it. So
and there's a difference there between saying yes and people pleasing, right? And
exactly,
the people pleasing is something I've dug in a little bit more recently, and it's actually a very selfish behavior if you unpack it.
Let's unpack it.
Okay. So if you're saying yes to somebody because you want them to like you, but you don't actually want to do the thing, let's say they invite you to an activity and you're saying yes to please them as a person, people pleasing, then you're actually lying to them because you don't want to do it. And so you're not like
being authentic. Yeah.
So that's like an interesting filter that you can start to run things through.
I think that's kind of a Minnesotan thing almost, though, is like not being direct. When somebody asks you to do something, like the polite thing sometimes is to...
Do you know that causes you so much more pain and emotional bandwidth?
I've learned that over time. Yeah.
So I just coached somebody from California through this. So it's not just a Minnesota thing. So we're both turning 40 this year. She's a really good friend of mine, and she started dating. So she's never been married, doesn't have any kids, and she's starting dating on these apps, which I don't relate to because I met my husband in a bar and he picked me up over a crossword puzzle on a slow Sunday afternoon. That was his game. It worked. So anyways, she's telling me about this guy that she went out on a date with, and it's a no for her. Like, she just knows it's a no, but he's super nice. And so she doesn't know how to like tell him that she's not interested, kind of a thing. And she went and ruminated on this for at least 5 days. It like took up so much of her brain power and emotional bandwidth and all the things. And then during a coaching session, I literally made her type out a text to him that was like, hey, like, really enjoyed meeting you, not interested romantically, but if you want, let's be friends. And she felt so much relief afterwards. And here now they're like our friends and they're workout buddies. And like, he's a really big part of her life. He might still be interested. I don't know.
Yeah, you might have just friend zoned that guy up a little bit, but at the end of the day,
she was wrecked, though.
Yeah, well, because she's like living her true self then, instead of like, he's nice, so I don't want to not be nice to him, even if it's not true.
But the current MO for dating, from what I hear, is just to ghost people. You just don't respond back. So she's been on that side of it, where she's gone out with dates with some guys that she's interested in enough for a second date, and she'll be like, hey, had a great time, and they won't contact her back.
That's like 1,000 times worse.
I know, because you're left wondering what's wrong with you, because automatically you take that on as something that is lacking in yourself.
Interesting.
And this is all the work that I geek out on now. So this is all life coaching stuff, right?
You gotta like pick people's brains apart.
Yeah, like just our thought processes and what we make things mean. I was just talking to another client before I came in here, and we are actually working together in like a health relationship, but or coaching standpoint. But we were talking last week about her relationship with her mom and her sisters and her dad and all their family dynamics, and something called the manual, which is basically you might have a manual for your wife where you expect certain things from her, but you've never actually told her. So when she doesn't do what you expect, you get upset with her, or for your kids or something else. And so it all ties together. I just like that I can meet people in this day and age with something that they know they want to fix, which is usually their weight or their health. And we can go deeper than that. So that's why I have had a little bit of trouble when we first talked describing what it is that I do. Because again, I'm interested in all the things, and I can help people in lots of different ways. I have over there a little marketing card that Danielle has seen that was a direct result of our conversation.
Cool.
Yes, because I finally put into place, here's my easy yes offer, here's what I do, no questions.
But you had to do it.
Yeah.
And that's,
I had to make decisions.
And you did it. But like, you kind of had it.
Yeah. But I didn't have it because I couldn't articulate it clearly and succinctly to you.
But when I look at that brochure later, it probably is dialed in, right?
It should be. I mean, feel free to give me feedback.
So now you're currently, so tell us about your current business. We can get back to that exit you had from the VA business.
Yeah, and there was another one in between. So basically in 2000, and I think it must have been the end of 2015, somebody cold pitched me. What that means is, like, it's way more common these days, but just shows up in your inbox and is like, hey, I would like to do the service for you. There's a good way to go about it. There's a really horrible way to go about it, which is what most people do. And it's all like automated these days, and it's all about them and not at all about what you might need help with. But this gal, Kristen, sent me a cold pitch that said, some nice things about being a follower of the blog, because that's what we called things back in the day, and wondering if I needed some help with Pinterest because my visibility there was lacking compared to other platforms. So she identified a specific need and way that she could help. She also introduced herself and, you know, here's how I know of you, what we have in common. Like, we already have this relationship that you don't know about.
Yeah.
But I know who you are. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm always looking for the opportunities to get a bigger reach. And so we ended up talking, and I hired her as my Pinterest virtual assistant. So she did social media marketing for me specific to the Pinterest platform. Fast forward a couple of months, and we collaborated on PinterestVA.com, which is still in existence.
Just copy and paste with the new.
Yeah.
Did you do 30 days
No, we set it up. Well, we ran things through my company for that first year, and then we set it up on its own business entity as a partnership. She's from a different state. And then we did not have a operating agreement in place or a buy-sell prior. So there's a lot of story there, but when I got sober, basically I lost the drive that I had to accomplish as much because my priorities changed. My priorities resurfaced around my family and showing up for them and staying sober. And so she wanted to keep going full throttle and I wanted to come back. And I had the VA business and then I had launched another thing.
You're juggling a lot of stuff plus getting your personal life reorganized.
Had kind of imploded and I was rebuilding. And so we had discussions back and forth that resulted in her offering to buy my half of the business. And so we closed on that in July of 2020. And that was for mid 6 figures, excuse me. I don't know that I've ever publicly shared the exact amount, but I was able to earn.
That's badass, though.
6 figures a year.
I mean, a lot of people like work their
years.
whole life to be able to sell one time and like close the book or close the chapter and start another chapter.
Yeah, a lot of times business owners just shut down, right?
They just let it die. I think that's a shame, really. Like,
Right.
if we're, like you. What I think is really unique about you is you kind of build it, like you built that infrastructure from the beginning, whether or not you
did it on purpose.
You did it on purpose or not. Like those business models are kind of built out around that, where like when you're doing like the freelance thing, like what do you sell when you're just like a freelance writer? You're selling your time and the exchange there, right?
But I actually learned super early on to not sell my time.
How did you learn that?
So different influences that I was able to intake. It was around words. Yeah. How many pricing per word and then pricing per article. So it never was around an hour of my time.
So the reference point was different than time.
Yeah.
So
that
if you can increase
complete it in a shorter amount of time and increase my income and scale in that capacity. And then you could scale by having subcontractors. People could hire out the research, the editing, the actual writing.
And still do it at a really high level.
Yeah. Because ultimately, like I would be the one that would be delivering the final product. So I would make sure it would be as if I would have written it or take it to that level before delivering it.
So other than maybe putting an operating agreement in place for that other business, is there anything else you would have done differently as you were growing to like make that exit?
So the part
better?
that I regret or would do over is that we're not friends anymore. And we became like inseparable really quickly. And she was a big part of my life and we're friendly and polite, but do not interact in the way that we did at that time. We would travel together. We had so much fun together. And it just feels like kind of like, what did I do wrong? You know, and there's probably lots of things, but I miss her because she's a lovely person.
Maybe just reach back out to her.
I did recently. They just adopted actually.
Oh, cool.
Which is very neat.
So you're like, it's just a different level of interaction.
We're at different points in our lives.
Changed.
We don't have, it has changed. Maybe we would grow close again. Probably not. And that's okay. It's a season, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you had some transitioning prior to starting your business now, right? There's a little bit of time there.
Yeah. So I had Hazel, who just turned 3 somehow. So during the whole COVID experience, so one of the things that fueled me early on was to replace my salary so that I could have complete autonomy over my time and location. So Wade had quit his job in the summer of 2013 when our second was born to become a stay-at-home dad. And so he was free. Kids were young, weren't in school yet. And so in 2016, that January, we started traveling down to South Padre Island, Texas, and we would winter there. And people thought we were probably like trust fund babies or something. I don't know what they thought, but I would work from there and he would do his thing with the kids. We could stay for 30 days for like $2,500. Crazy cheap.
Gracious.
Yeah. So you could take a trip to Disney or you could stay for an entire month on the beach in a condo.
Life's all about choices, right? So
we started doing that. And then we actually purchased in March of 2020, just as COVID was hitting. We signed paperwork on our rental house down there at Disney, whatever one is in Florida.
Yeah, I don't really know which one it is either. Disney World, Disney Planet,
Disneyland.
something. I don't know.
Disney World's in California or Florida.
So
So we bought the house, which is just kind of all part of it,
So
right?
that's the second time that you said you wanted to, like, you reverse engineered. You set your goal around how much your expenses were. Did you learn that somewhere?
Probably in finance, because I was helping people to plan for retirement. So they needed to figure out, hey,
Mhm.
what's my nest egg need to be in order to produce a certain amount of income, which usually those factors are like 5%
Mhm.
is your assumption that you can get as a return. So we also did like Financial Peace University probably in 2011. That's Dave Ramsey's program. I led our church, a small group at our church through it. I led a small group I was a part of through it. So I was very in tune with what our overhead was, which was helpful too as a business owner, right? And P&Ls
Well,
and stuff.
yeah. Well, then you're thinking about like your home structure and like your finances, the things that you like need. Now you have some like real reference, like some rigidity to it instead of just like, well, I think I can make it work with this salary. So I think
We
that
need $7,300 a month to run our household right now.
yeah, but that's really powerful to know that, right? Because then you can monitor your input, and if you're not getting the output you want, well, then you got to change something on the input side,
Yeah.
right?
That's lead and leg metrics. I love talking about those things because, especially like going back to what I do today, most people want to lose weight, right? So they're
Mhm.
looking for a change in the scale, which is not the best way to measure your success getting healthy. But people use it, whatever. So your leg metric is how much you weigh when you step in the scale after putting the inputs, which are the lead metrics of I'm working out 3 times a week, I'm hitting my macros 7
So
out of
is that
7
something that you
days.
have to go through and like teach people? Then obviously, like you have to point out, like, hey, we're looking at this. This
Yeah.
is the result. But in order to get to this thing, the
Yeah.
reason we're talking, we had like let's talk
This is
about
what we have
these
to focus
things.
on. Here's our plan.
And it's not like it's like a hidden thing, right? It's not like there's a secret really to lose. Like if you have less calories coming in than you're burning, like eat less, work out more. Like I feel like that's like the general how to lose weight, but it's not that simple.
No, because there's the muscle equation
Absolutely.
and how that affects your health and all that good stuff. Terry Seville Foy, I've been listening to her a lot lately. She said that the best diet is the one that you don't stop, right?
Mhm.
So all of them work.
I mean,
You
we
just
all
have
have
to
a
continue them.
and really we all have a diet. Like
I
what
love
you
the
eat
word
is a
diet
diet
as the way that we
Mhm.
eat.
because that's what it is.
Yeah.
But people think about it as like this item or this process rather than this holistic, like this is part of my life.
It's
right.
the same with budget.
Interesting.
Because budget you assume is being negative, or most people would. Because if you're on a budget, you're restricted from your spending. If you're on a diet, you're restricted from what you eat.
Fascinating. That word just brings up a certain type of thought process to people because that's how it's been used.
Or the belief that they've adopted or inherited. So thoughts are sentences in our mind. Thoughts that are thought over and over and over become beliefs, and they get taken from our prefrontal cortex, which is our evolved version of the brain, and down regulated to the primal brain and automated. So we're kind of like computers in a way. So if we practice thoughts often enough, they become beliefs, and then we start operating out of beliefs from our habits, and we have no idea why we're doing what we're doing.
It's like Inception.
It's fascinating. Like I
love that
this
stuff.
world so much.
And the psychology, like that's what drives everything, whether or not we really understand it, because people are behind everything in business. Like there would be no
There's a robot that is running.
now because there's some people built the freaking robot. Like,
have you been there though? It's nearby us. It's in Wisconsin. What's that little town when you're going on Highway 8 right past St. Croix Falls, Balsam Lake? So it used to
Sounds
be
about right.
like, I don't know if it's called the Lodge. They used to do a lot of weddings and stuff. And I need to go there. I haven't been there in years, but they transformed their big restaurant space into like 4 or 6 suites. And then they took their bar space, and that's now their restaurant. And they had a restroom or a party room that's the restaurant, and their bar is still the bar. Whatever. The moral of the story, some guy that I was talking next to at an expo said that they have a robot that takes the food from the kitchen. So as soon as it's done, it's hot, and it delivers it to the table. And they still have waitresses, but they only need a third of them that delivers it. So the waitress still takes the order. And then the robot still comes in buses. You want to go to lunch? Should we go check this out today?
Yeah. What's the robot's name?
I don't know, but I'm fascinated. I'm a little scared of all this stuff, but also
Does it
more
have a
curious.
face? Like, how does it?
I don't
Like,
know.
what's the maps? Like, how does it know where to? I have so many questions.
I know. It reminds me of the Jetsons. And I've
I
been
was
working,
literally just gonna say that.
I've been working with some 20-year-olds. They do not know what the Jetsons are. It's a shame.
It's
Travesty.
crazy. I feel really old when you say that.
Makes me want to jump on the conveyor belt though and shower and have it brush my teeth and put on a fancy outfit.
Yeah, that was like that's like literally the world we're living in now. Though is like maybe not in outer space and all that.
I
but
mean, we're on our way.
true. Okay, that's so.
I help people lift weights.
So
eat
people are coming to you now, and they have the thing that they're willing to talk about. Like,
Yeah.
But you hinted at earlier where you're usually like unpacking
Yeah.
some other things.
We present with our problem, our pain point, right? Which is external, but everything is internal as far as the source of or the root cause.
So like, how do you, like, what are some tips or some practices that you go through with your clients to like help redirect from like looking outward to that internal like processing,
yeah.
like the introspection?
Awareness is huge, right? So I think people want to get to the point where they're ready to take action and make a change, have a goal, you give them the plan, and then they get to the goal. And that works, except for 90 whatever percent of people end up gaining their weight back because they don't maintain those lifestyle changes long term. And the reason that they don't do that is they operated out of willpower and restriction and temporary status versus maybe changing the habits and the belief patterns behind it all. So there's not like this magic formula or system like 30 days or less that I have right now. Maybe I'll create something in the future. But ultimately, what I'm drawn to is connecting with Matt, who's in front of me, and figuring out what makes him tick and how I can help. And it's not the thing that I lead with. And it has to be with their permission that I'm coaching them in that capacity too. Like this gal that I was just talking about with her parents and her siblings, it was like, they do so much more for my sisters and not for me. So things aren't fair and it's hurtful and some different things. And we unpack it to realize that it's possible that her parents just think that she's got her shit together.
Yeah.
They don't
need
that.
They want to
help.
stay out of your way
Yeah.
instead of be overbearing.
Yeah. So I would say as far as like tips, awareness is key. If we don't know what we're doing in the first place, there's no way that we can unpack it, see what it's about and change it. And then also like a lot more love, acceptance, and then the future version of yourself is my favorite.
Let's go through that then really quick. So you ask people like what's that process, the future version?
Yeah. So, this gets in a little bit of the vision planning stuff, but if somebody comes to me and presenting with wanting to recomp their body, right? So maybe the scale number isn't super important. They're just looking to gain muscle, shed some body fat. You could be the exact same weight, by the way, and have a totally different physique. It's so awesome to look at some of those pictures. But let's see what we're talking about. I got off.
The future version.
Oh, future version. Yeah. So if they're able to imagine what that goal is for them, it's then tuning into who that future version is, what they think, what they do in order to bring about those results and maintain them, right?
So you're asking them a bunch of questions then? Pretty much.
So one of my clients
questions that maybe they wouldn't ask themselves.
For sure.
Otherwise they'd get to that result.
Yeah. Or like the first layer of their response might be really materialistic or superficial.
And then you like keep going.
Yeah. Because it goes back to like the power of why.
Fascinating.
But if you think about the future version of Matt and you start to get to know him based on the goals that you have for yourself in the future, like what actions should you take today in order to be loving, nice, kind to future Matt, who's dealing with the consequences of the choices that you make now?
I mean, it's really powerful.
Yeah.
And a lot of people just never think that way because they're so stuck in this is where I'm at and I do or don't like it. And I assume people come to you and they maybe know that they don't like where they're currently at. And they also don't have a vision of what that future self is. So like going through that process of like creating that vision, now those steps become easier along the way because now you know where you're going. When
Well,
really there's nothing to like.
there's no finish line.
Yeah, you don't know
Like when you're trying to get healthy,
going.
like there is a point of arrival
Mhm.
where you could say I accomplished my goal,
Mm-hmm.
but you don't just stop doing things then, because if you ultimately go back to the way that you were behaving,
Yeah.
you'll get the results that you had before. So it has to be that
You have to
change long
yeah,
term.
if you do what you've always done, you get what you've always got type of
Right.
thing. So what's your vision with your business right now?
So my personal guess forecast maybe is a word
what's
that I would look like.
future version?
Yeah. But so where I'm going with this is I think that based on AI and COVID and automation and that we're moving into a time where we're going to value the human to human experience more,
Mhm.
and service-based businesses likely will have an advantage or can maybe charge a premium price because you're getting
pest control.
deliverable. What's that?
Like pest control.
Like exactly.
So again, you're seeing the
Landscape.
and you see kind of what's on the horizon, and you're pivoting on the front side of that.
Also because of what I enjoy. So
Mhm.
there's a very selfish desire of wanting to work with a small pool of people
Mhm.
and help and really like pour into
Because
them.
you love people, like
I-
people are your thing. You said
Yeah.
that earlier.
Yeah, I love
So-
people. And I want to help them to get results. And many of my clients have
Mhm.
tried every diet. They've been successful and then gained the weight back.
Mhm.
And again, never maybe gotten to that root issue of what needs to change.
So the term like life coach,
Yeah.
I feel like that's thrown around a lot of different ways nowadays. Like
My first experience with what a life coach was watching the Orange County Housewives.
oh, nice.
And it didn't give a good stereotype
Mhm.
to me. Like it
But
didn't
those
make me want to go.
stereotypes are there, right? Like it's become like it used to be like new, but now it's like a almost commodity, like a commodity.
It's more like it's not at all a therapist,
Mhm.
but it's becoming in demand like one would search out therapy, but for different reasons.
Hmm.
Especially because I think during COVID, it was really hard to get a therapist
Mhm.
because it was a saturated market. There was more demand than there were available
everybody
people
needed it.
to help. We all still do.
Mhm.
I mean, and so life coach takes a softer, I think, tone and approach to that
Mhm.
because we're not dealing with trauma. We're typically not looking backwards. We're looking at where we're at right now and where we
It's
want
more
to go.
empowering though.
Yeah. They both serve a purpose and can work
Mhm.
together. Some people, therapy would be more appropriate for. Others, life coaching would be more appropriate for. What I like about it is that we're future casting to work towards the most evolved, best version of
Mhm.
ourselves and getting what we want, and not really living out of the past so
Mhm.
much.
That's pretty amazing, really. So you're doing it because the passion's there,
Yeah.
but
Fitness is like
But-
an interest of mine. I'm a bikini competitor. There's another whole thing to unpack there. Not that you couldn't make a living unless you were like a fitness influencer or maybe did your own apparel brand or those things I'm
Something.
not super interested in.
affiliate marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm more interested in like the
The human side.
personal growth
Mhm.
goal that I had for myself, and then realized how much I love lifting weights and how
Mhm.
people are not necessarily going about all of this in the most effective, efficient manner.
So it's like I'm just thinking about like the path you've taken. Like there's these things that like you conquer and develop like a really deep understanding of, and then help other people with those things.
Yeah. That's a good
I think
insight.
that's really like that's super cool about your personality. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna keep this secret sauce over here and like I'm gonna be the only one. I'm gonna make this monopoly. So like if I had to assume, you'd probably like do something like you've done before with what you're doing now. In 18 months when we talk, I wouldn't be surprised if you've helped some other people become coaches or figure their own stuff out, right? Because that is just outside of like starting and exiting and being okay with that amount of change that has to happen through all that. The other thing that's been like a really consistent theme is that like learn, teach, and like
Learn, do, teach.
Mhm.
Yeah.
which is, and you do it fast too, which is incredibly powerful when it comes to like being a business owner. Like rather than just like accomplishing, like you're taking that and now you're like making more out of it than just what you were able to get for your own personal self. You're like giving it back. I don't know. It's just a really powerful thing when you do that.
I do believe that I'm here to be of service.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that we probably all have in common in this room, right? And I think there's different ways to go about that. And past Gina maybe was looking for accolades and needed to be told that she's doing a good job and that she's successful and looking externally for validation. And current Gina is more solidified in my state as far as confidence goes. And I think that takes care of kind of future Gina in a way. If I'm leading with being of service and helping people and authentically being interested in them on a one-to-one basis, I think we all have this desire and need to be seen and known and heard, right? And
Absolutely.
helped.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it is part of like human nature, especially when you come from a family of 6, I've got 5 brothers and sisters. So we're all competing for attention there. But like in the grand scheme of things, when you zoom out to everybody, like we're all like, we like to be appreciated. We like to feel part of something. We like to be included.
Yeah. Back to the tribe.
But some people aren't as good at initiating that as others. And then that can lead to different feelings, right?
Well, we also don't need to be in community anymore when it comes to survival. But we do when it comes to like mental health. We're seeing that, right? We're seeing the effects of COVID. We're seeing the effects of smartphones. There was a psychologist that wrote a book. I'm just citing from third party.
It's like the 15th book you've cited.
I mean, reading is
you're a learner.
One way to definitely gain information. But the iPhone and social media didn't do a lot for the younger version of our population that is comparing themselves to like ideals. So I was listening to the Mind Pump show and they were citing this book. So I didn't actually read this book. This is through Sal reading the book. And he was talking about how he had taken his kids and he had his like niece and nephew in town to some amusement park. And how he asked his 16-year-old niece, like, what's the hardest part about being a teenager? And she answered very honestly that it was comparing herself and talking about like people that she followed on Instagram and all that kind of stuff. And he was like, oh, this is fascinating. Okay, you guys, let's take a look right now at the people that you see in this amusement park. How many of them meet the standards for the people you're comparing yourself against on social media? It's like none. Like there's not these models.
It's not a realistic thing. Yeah.
No, but that's internally how they've been conditioned to see the world. So I'm very worried about this, having 2 daughters, right? We don't have any cell phones for them at this point, 12, almost 11, and then 3. And that's one of the, like when we get them phones, I think they're going to be dumb phones. They're so mad about this. But I'm trying to protect them in that way. It's not like they don't have access to the internet.
My kids can get a phone when they get a job and can pay for it.
That's when I got a phone.
Like,
yeah,
I don't know. It's not. They get enough stuff like those things like that. Like
there is the communication thing that is helpful.
There's
though,
that,
so.
But if all their friends have phones, right? So like. So
we're talking about socialization and the mental health crisis.
Yeah, I know we've gone on a couple tangents, but like I think that does contribute to like survival.
So we used to needed to be a part of the tribe in the caveman days, right? Yep. Because if you were isolated, it meant that you were outcast from the group because you did something wrong, you were sick, you couldn't procreate. People didn't like you. And so then you were likely to die because you needed other people to protect you, to find food, to repopulate the earth, all the things. And if you think about us today, especially in this world of virtual reality, like you could get DoorDash to your house or Target to deliver your groceries. You can do your work from home. You could live totally by yourself and never see another soul in.
So have you thought about how you're going to balance that? Like, because you have a really good understanding of how fast everything is moving with technology, and then also the impact that that's having on the mental health of the younger generations. Like, how are you navigating the fact that technology isn't going anywhere? If anything, it's just going to be more prevalent with teaching your children not to measure themselves on those things. Because like I go through the thought process, and I really want to hear your thoughts on this. Like, sometimes I'm like, my kid is on an iPad at school all day. That's how they learn nowadays. So by holding that back from him, am I preventing his ability to like have the most success in the future?
Yeah.
Or am I doing what I hope we're doing and having him like focus on his own thoughts
Yeah.
and teach that? Like, how do you navigate that thought process with
there's
teenagers?
Never one right and wrong way to
Mhm.
anything, right? One of the best compliments, two best compliments I've ever got in my life. One, Target. I was pushing a cart, and this was, I think, my first show that I did as a bikini
Mhm.
competitor. And a woman came up to me and said, "You have really great arms." And then second best compliment is probably it should be first, is just how well our kids can communicate with adults. So we talked about going down to Texas every year.
Mhm.
Texas in the winter is all old people.
Oh yeah,
My
my
parents
grandparents
have-
used to go to South Padre all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah. So my parents were down there for 4 months this year. So we stayed in this condo complex, and basically they inherited all of these grandparents.
Mhm.
And they were like little lights, which is great. Like we went door to door and handed out Valentines and had
That's
so much
cute.
fun with it. So we got lots of compliments about that, but we also exposed them to different experiences, right? So I don't know what the right answer is for now. We're a no on phones for
Mhm.
today, right? Same thing, by the way, like with sobriety. And right now I'm zero sugar. I'm making a decision for today. I don't need to figure out and make a decision for the rest of my
Mhm.
life necessarily. Will I ever drink again? Probably not, but I'm not gonna like make it a big thing.
Mhm.
So for now, we're a no on cell phones. And then we don't allow and never really have our kids to wake up and watch TV or be on electronics at all. So right now they wake up, they have breakfast, they get ready for school. Our daughter, that's 3, will play. She's at this age where she needs a playmate all the time, all of a sudden, which is interesting challenge in and of itself when you don't want to pay Paw
Lots of
Patrol.
attention.
And they go to school, they come home, they do their homework.
Mhm.
They might have sports. After dinner is when they're cleared to have some electronics time. And we probably come across as
It's like a privilege though.
yeah, oh yeah, Braxton gets it taken away all the time. I can't listen. Braxton, it's okay. So I don't know what the right thing is, but
Mhm.
I'm going with our intuition, our value system, our gut, and we're just taking it as it comes. But I don't want to handicap them. At the same time, if we go with the masses, I don't know that group think is where I want.
Yeah.
I don't want to be average. I don't want our kids to be average.
Striving for mediocrity. So many people do that nowadays, and it's
But what is mediocre right now? It's obese. What else? It's in debt.
it's lazy. It's like a lot of things.
It's probably like maybe like no highs and lows, just
Mhm.
kind of meh.
Yeah, I don't want any of that. Goodness gracious. So I know we're probably gone over time here, so I want to be respectful of your time because I'm sure you got a couple customers to get to, but you are still accepting new clients now.
Mhm. I do some business coaching. I do in-person personal training.
Mhm.
And then like life coaching could be on any of the things.
Mhm.
Ultimately, most of my clients are entrepreneurs
Mhm.
and we cover everything from health, wealth, and relationships.
And so if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah. Why don't you just give me a call? I'll say my phone number on air, 651-247-2093. You might actually just text because people, phone calls are
People don't
scary.
answer the phone anymore.
But yeah, just give me a call, like total low pressure.
Okay. And then anything else you want to tell everybody that's listening before we hop off today?
I mean, we talked a lot about books.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe one day I've technically written or co-written 4 titles, all of them in the virtual services space. So nothing super long lasting and amazing in my opinion. But one of the books that I've recently read is called Worthy by Jamie Kern Lima. She was the founder of It Cosmetics and sold to L'Oreal for $1.2 billion in 2018. I think I have that right. Started it in her house. She was also on Big
Really?
Brother the first season, which is a fun fact. But she wrote this book called Worthy, and it's all about self-worth and for sure females, but I think everybody would benefit from reading it. And it's a lot. If you enjoyed this conversation and you want like to go further as far as your own self-learning path, unfortunately, I'm going to recommend somebody else. But read it and then come talk to me.
I think that says something about you, though. That it's not just like, call me. Like you're providing these resources and understanding that like if it's the right fit, like you're still there, but these other resources could be something that can help you take that next step.
For sure.
Thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate it. This is probably going to be episode like 26 for us. We're going to have to check on that. We've got a few that are waiting to get released right now, but I'm so grateful that you came out. This was a fascinating conversation. I got one more question for you.
Okay.
So the name of our show is The Homegrown Hustle. So we ask everyone what the word hustle means to you in terms of business.
This is an interesting word right now because I think the meaning that it had when I joined the 30 Days of Hustle back in 2014, and then kind of where it's gone and where it's being corrected to has changed. So I this
agree.
question.
I agree. That's why I'm asking everybody.
I mean, if I were to embrace it and what it means to me, I think it means hard work, taking action, and going kind of hard, maybe with a singular focused vision.
That's a fantastic definition. You've obviously thought about it a little bit. You're a deep thinker. I feel like I want to have you on again because there's a lot more we can unpack here, but your time is very valuable and I want to make sure you can take care of your customers. Reach out to Gina. She's amazing. Also part of the Forest Lake Chamber here. I think that's how we got connected with you, but I believe you're coaching virtually as well.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the benefits of this technology thing we've been talking about the whole time is it makes the world a little bit smaller place.
And honestly, one of my favorite parts of like my overall career and getting into the freelance world is I've talked to and met people from all over the world. I would never have had access to understanding a little bit about how life works differently, except for that experience. That's very grateful.
That's awesome. Well, thanks again, Gina. I really appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Thanks again for joining us on Homegrown Hustle. Our local business community thrives because of the brilliant leaders right here in our backyard. And it's been an absolute privilege to provide them with a platform to share their invaluable expertise. Stay tuned for more insight, wisdom, and inspiration from our local business champions. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on your favorite podcast platform. Together, we'll continue to nurture and expand our homegrown success stories. Matt Eichmann signing off until our next insightful episode.